The library in my parents' Santa Fe estate smelled of polished cedar and old Victory's books that had never been opened, scotch that had never been poured except when my father wanted to make a point. Afternoon light slanted through the high windows, catching dust in a slow, shimmering drift above the carved desk. My glass of iced tea rested against my palm, the condensation cold enough to keep me steady. For a moment, I thought the battles of the past were finally behind us. Then my father gave me a smile I'd come to fear. He pushed a folder across the desk and I expected a transfer deed. Instead, my fingertips brushed a contractor invoice. "We've moved the estate title to Diego and Isabel," he said, voice measured and warm. "It secures their future." Then he tapped the second page. "But we need you to sign this maintenance agreement. $4,800 a month. No end date." His smile widened. "You're the dependable one, Marisol. I thanks leftos for Materi." Before I tell you how I responded, let me ask you, have you ever been the one everyone leans on until your wallet becomes their lifeline? If you have, drop a yes in the comments. I'm reading every single one. I left that room without signing anything. No raised voice, no slammed door. Just quiet clarity. I got in my car and drove 2 hours back to my loft in Albuquerque, the desert highway stretching ahead of me like a long exhale. People later asked why I stayed so long, why I kept paying. They see the total $940,000 and call me naive. But I wasn't. I funded repairs, settlements, renovations, disasters, not because I was foolish, but because family loyalty can be its own addiction. Psychology has a term for it: intermittent reinforcement, the same hook that keeps players glued to slot machines. If you lose every time, you walk away. If you win every time, you get bored. But if you lose and lose and lose and then, just once, the machine lights up and spits out a tiny payout, you're hooked. You think the pattern is changing. You think your luck has turned. That was my father. For months, he would dismiss me or toss passive-aggressive remarks about my firm, calling my marketing consultancy a little side project. But the moment I wrote a check, the moment I rescued them from yet another disaster, he'd soften. "Marisol, you're the one we can always count on. You're the backbone of this family." That sentence was the jackpot, the coins clattering into the tray. It made every sacrifice feel justified. I told myself I was investing in legacy. I thought I was buying respect. But as the desert highway carried me toward Albuquerque and the skyline sharpened against the evening light, the truth hit with enough force to make my hands tense on the wheel. I wasn't the savior. I was the mark. They didn't respect me. They didn't even like me. They liked that I was solvent. My father's words echoed, "You are the capable one." It wasn't praise, it was permission to exploit me. Diego and Isabel got the estate because they couldn't survive without it. I got the bill because I could. When I pulled into my parking garage, silence swallowed the car. My hands were steady. No heartbreak. No grief. Only clarity, cold, heavy, undeniable. I wasn't signing anything. I wasn't paying another dime. For the first time in a decade, I was walking out of the casino. I entered my loft, bypassed the couch, and went straight to my office. I opened my laptop. The blue glow rose over my face, cool and clinical. It was time to audit the books. For years, I had treated my family's expenses like a subscription service I'd forgotten how to cancel. Everything had been automatic, frictionless. The property taxes for the Santa Fe estate were set to autodraft from my high-yield savings account. The utilities, which regularly ballooned past $800 each summer because Isabel insisted on chilling the guest casita to Arctic temperatures, were linked to my checking. And then there was the so-called maintenance fund, a $4,800 wire transfer scheduled on the first of every month. I logged into the county portal first. A pending tax payment glared back at me. My cursor hovered over Manage Autopay. Click. Delete. Confirm. Next, the electric co-op. I erased my banking information and replaced it with the ranch's mailing address. If they wanted power, they could write their own checks. Click. Remove. Save. Then came the largest bleed, the transfer that had fueled the illusion of family unity. I opened the history. Month after month of withdrawals, a river of my labor vanishing into sand. I chose cancel recurring transaction. A security prompt appeared. Are you sure? This cannot be undone. For a heartbeat, guilt pricked me. I heard my mother's thin, wavering tone when she needed money. I heard my father's quiet disappointment. But then I remembered the contract. I remembered Diego's smug expression when he realized he owned land I had spent years bankrolling. I pressed yes. The screen blinked. Transaction cancelled. Nothing exploded. The world didn't tilt. Only the refrigerator hummed in the background. The silence felt breathable like fresh air after a storm. I exhaled, tension unspooling from my ribs. Peace lasted exactly 48 minutes. My phone, face down beside the keyboard, buzzed. My mother. I didn't answer. The screen lit again. Marisol, the electric company, just notified me about a payment update. What did you do? Marisol, answer me. Your father is getting upset. Marisol, how could you be so cruel? We are your family. Then Diego's messages rolled in, less pleading, more venom. So you think you're clever? Cutting us off? You're a disgrace. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof because of you. Hope you can live with that, you selfish witch. I stared at the phrase selfish witch and almost laughed. It came out dry, humorless. I was the one who had just stopped hemorrhaging $4,800 a month. Yet somehow, in their narrative, I was the thief. I checked my bank balance. Stable. No more slow bleed. A familiar instinct nudged at me to fix it, to soothe them, to pay the peace tax. But the cancellation receipt on my screen felt like armor. I didn't respond. I closed the laptop, poured a glass of water, and switched my phone to do not disturb. The bleeding had finally stopped. I assumed silence would force them to reflect. Maybe without my money, they'd confront reality. That was naive. When you cut off a parasite, it doesn't heal. It retaliates. It happened on a Tuesday, 3 days after the cutoff. I walked into my marketing firm in downtown Albuquerque, coffee in hand, ready for a strategy session. My operations manager, Carla, stood frozen by my desk. Marisol, she whispered, we have a problem. The server is down. You need to see the website. I pulled up our homepage. My stomach turned cold. The sleek landing page was gone, replaced by a black screen with red text. The CEO steals from her own family. Greedy liar. Who has admin access besides me? I asked, voice steady though my pulse thundered. Only the IT team, Carla said. And? Your brother. From when he installed the firewall. Diego. I didn't scream. I walked into the server room. The backup drives were wiped. Client files, contracts, months of work gone. This wasn't a tantrum. It was sabotage. This was something else. This was what psychologists call a narcissistic injury. When I stopped paying the bills, I didn't just inconvenience them. I shattered the fantasy they lived inside. My family built their entire identity around being dignified landowners, proud stewards of a historic Santa Fe estate. But that image was a costume, stitched together and maintained with my money. Without my payments, the lights would shut off. The pipes would freeze, the land would wither. When I pulled the plug, I unmasked them. I forced them to see they weren't self-made ranchers, they were financially dependent, deeply unprepared adults. And that terror, the terror of being exposed, didn't turn into reflection. It turned into attack. This wasn't about dollars anymore. They wanted to punish me for revealing the truth. Get the forensic team on the line, I told Carla. And call my lawyer. Should I call your brother? She asked. No, I said, staring at the vandalized homepage. That's what he wants. Panic, begging, leverage. I'm not feeding him. I sat at my desk. The gambler's fallacy was dead. I wasn't waiting for the universe to reward loyalty. I was dismantling the machine altogether. And Carla, I added, document everything. Every login attempt, every erased file, screenshots of each page. Diego thought this was a family spat. He was about to learn it was a felony. The red text on my screen blinked. Greedy liar. A projection. They were drowning in their own failures and screaming my name. I wasn't listening anymore. I was cataloging evidence. I didn't respond with rage. I didn't drive to the estate demanding answers. Anger is wasted on people who weaponize chaos. I called a forensic accountant instead. His name was David, $350 an hour. Worth every cent. I handed him everything. 10 years of statements, transfers, emails detailing repairs. Then my lawyer subpoenaed the estate's financial records. Because Diego had used my credentials to breach my servers, he'd opened a legal door he couldn't close. He couldn't close it. We weren't just looking at the hack, we were looking at the motive. It took David 3 days to uncover the smoking gun. I was working from my temporary office downtown when he called. Marisol, he said, voice calm and clinical. I'm reviewing the flow of funds from the maintenance account, the one you wired $4,800 to every month. Yes, I said. For taxes, feed, repairs. No, David replied. That account never paid a single property tax bill. My grip tightened on the phone. The estate's operational costs were covered entirely by cattle leases and the oil royalties your father receives. Your contributions didn't fund the property. Then where did they go? It was a pass-through entity, he continued. Within 24 hours of each deposit, the funds were transferred to a brokerage account under the name DR Strategic Holdings. Registered to Diego Reyes. DR. The room tilted. I sank into my chair. For a decade, my father hadn't been asking me to help sustain the family land, he had been funneling my money to bankroll Diego's fantasies of becoming a tech mogul. Every sacrifice trip, every delayed car upgrade, every dollar I poured into family duty had actually funded my brother's crypto bets and failed startups. David sent the spreadsheet. It was nauseating. March 2018 barn roof repairs. The money bought Ethereum. July 2020 emergency vet bills. The funds went into a tech stock that tanked months later. They weren't broke. They were thieves. My father, I whispered, the man who preached duty, stole from the daughter who earned it to feed the son who squandered it. What's the balance now? Roughly $215,000, David said. Liquid. They had the money to fix my servers. They had the money to repay me. They just felt entitled not to. Draft the report, I told him. And inform my attorney. I'm going to pay them a visit. I wasn't going there to beg. I was going to collect. I drove to the Santa Fe ranch on a Friday afternoon, the desert sky wide and indifferent to the storm I carried. I parked beside Diego's truck, a truck I now suspected my money had funded. They were waiting in the living room. It looked like an intervention staged by amateurs. My mother, Elena, perched on the floral sofa with a handkerchief, trembling for effect. Diego leaned against the fireplace mantel, arms crossed, trying to appear imposing but radiating childish defiance. Isabel lounged in the corner, scrolling through her phone. And my father, Javier, sat in his worn leather armchair like a king presiding over a kingdom that existed only in his imagination. They expected surrender. They thought the server attack had broken me, that I had come crawling for forgiveness. We are disappointed in you, Marisol, my father began, not bothering to stand. You nearly destroyed your brother's future with your tantrum, cutting off the funds, threatening us. That isn't how you were raised. And the website? Diego sneered. Consider it a warning. You don't turn your back on family. We're willing to forgive you, my mother added. If you reinstate the transfers and sign the maintenance contract, we just want peace. I didn't sit. I stood in the center of the room, holding a thick manila envelope. The weight felt righteous. There isn't going to be peace, I said, my voice steady. And I'm not signing anything. I tossed the envelope onto the coffee table. It hit with a satisfying thud. That, I said, is a forensic accounting of the past 10 years. Every transfer I made. And every transfer Javier diverted into Diego's investment portfolio. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. My father's face drained. Diego straightened, panic breaking through. You audited us, he shouted. That's illegal. It's discovery, I replied calmly, for a civil suit regarding the cyberattack on my firm. And it's about to become a criminal exhibit. I looked my father in the eye. This is wire fraud, Dad. And Diego? Destroying my servers is a federal cybercrime. I have the IP logs. I have the bank traces. I have everything. Elena's face went pale. You wouldn't, she whispered. He's your brother. You wouldn't send him to prison. I would, I said without hesitation. I pulled a single sheet from my bag. This is a settlement agreement. It requires the immediate liquidation of Diego's holding account and a transfer of $200,000 back to me. It also includes $50,000 in damages for the destruction of my business systems. You sign it, send the funds today, and I walk away quietly. I met each of their eyes. If you refuse, I drive straight to the district attorney. I can't liquidate that account. Diego shouted, panic cracking his voice. That's my capital, my future. Date said attached. It's my money, I said. And it's going home. Javier rose slowly, hands trembling. He looked at the envelope, then at me, struggling to reclaim the authority he once had. Marisol, be reasonable. You're successful. Why ruin your own family over money you don't even need? It's not about needing it, I answered. It's about the fact that you stole it. You looked me in the eye for 10 years and lied while funneling everything I gave to him. I checked my watch. You have 5 minutes. End quote. As at a moment adagro. It didn't take 5. It took 2. Diego broke first, collapsing into tears. Dad, sign it. Please. I can't go to jail. And just like that, the patriarch crumbled. Javier didn't meet my eyes as he signed the transfer order and the settlement. In that moment, he wasn't a powerful rancher, just a man caught stealing. I gathered the papers. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out into the Santa Fe sun feeling lighter than I ever had. 6 months later, the ranch was gone. Without my payments and without Diego's investment cushion, the debt swallowed them whole. They sold the land to a developer out of Austin to cover the remaining mortgages and the mountain of credit card debt. My parents ended up in a rental duplex on the outskirts of Santa Fe. Diego moved in with a new girlfriend, one who didn't yet know he was financially underwater. Isabel stopped speaking to any of them once she realized there was no inheritance left to orbit around. The legacy they tried to hoard had dissolved into nothing. One evening, I stood on the balcony of my Albuquerque loft, watching the sun slip behind the Sandia Mountains, streaking the skyline in violet and gold. A notification lit my phone. The settlement funds had cleared months earlier, but today, a new transfer arrived. I didn't use the money for a car. I didn't upgrade my home. Spending it felt too reactive, still tethered to them. I wanted to turn exploitation into empowerment. So I created the Freedom Grant, a scholarship and emergency aid fund for women financially supporting toxic families. It provides legal assistance, financial planning, and critical escape funds for those who need to step away but can't afford to. It became my quiet rebellion. Every time I authorize a grant for a woman who needs a deposit for a safe apartment or legal help to sever financial ties, I feel something almost sacred. My trauma didn't end with me, it became a ladder for someone else. I closed my laptop and poured a glass of wine. The air in my loft was warm and still. I thought of the maintenance contract my father once tried to trap me with. He wanted lifelong obligation. Instead, truth severed the cord. The gambler's fallacy was gone. I no longer placed bets on people rigged to make me lose. I invested in myself. If my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your voice in the comments. Tell me what part hit home. Or simply drop a message of strength. Your support reminds me why I fought so hard to reclaim my life. And if you're standing where I once stood, pouring yourself into people who only take, let this be your reminder. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to choose yourself. Set one boundary today, even a small one. Freedom starts with a single, steady no.